Welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know this is the official podcast of GeoWoodstock 18 right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Each week, we're going to talk about caches and cachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're figuring out where to display that new GeoCoin you just bought, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
Oh, that's right. And that means it's time to bring in our collecting capuchin. Some say he's harder to cancel than a gym membership. And others say ancient Polynesian records show he was the first to hula. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
And no one do the hula like you do the hula. All right, my friends, good to be back. Hope you guys had a happy Halloween. A lot of spooky stories being told in the last episode. I listened into some of that.
Mostly we just talked about you and blamed whatever went wrong on you. As is appropriate when you're not on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
If you're not here, it's your fault.
So whose fault it isn't this week is Chris and Diego from Sharks Coins. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
So you won't get blamed for anything because you're here. So good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right,
Watch out next week. That's all we have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, since I've introduced a land shark, it's time to remind everybody that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep the podcast coming each and every week. And a thanks to land sharks right over there. Nope, there, right over there.
There you go. Yeah.
Our corporate Denali level sponsor. And hey, if you want to know more about supporting the show, click the Patreon link on the cashingnw.com website.
That's right. And folks, another thing we love and we do each and every week is our glows. What is a glow, you may ask? Well,
What is a glow?
We thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
That is a geocaching log of the week. Whether you wrote it or whether you read it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email or a field recording to feedback@cashingnw.com. You can call in to 253-693-TFTC and show us how you glow.
Oh, and you know who glows this week? It's friend of the show and several other hats that maybe we'll just let remain anonymous. It would be Brylang. Brylang submitted the log from an event. Remember when we had events?
That's
way back when we had events.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this was a CETO, a cash-in, trash-out event, removing tree protectors at Aldergrove Regional Park. And his log reads, "What a great CETO event. Haven't had that much fun while working for a long time. It all started with a very early log from Mr. GeoNavPros, who logged that he attended an hour before the event was due to start. When I arrived, Roy from Metro Vancouver Parks had a shelter set up over a picnic table, and lunch was waiting on the table. Introductions and conversations bounced around the group as people gathered. Soon enough, Rory introduced us to the task of the day, removing tree protectors from cedar trees, aka tree socks. These were long mesh socks with a metal ring at the top and bottom. They needed to be removed before the trees grew too large and the metal ring started cutting into the growing trees. No danger of that, as most of the trees were pretty small. We walked to the first area where we were told there were around 100 of the tree protectors. We made short work of that area and we moved around to the west side of the park. Some walked across the park, picking up more tree socks along the way, and the rest of us drove around. We were presented with another challenge: removing tree socks from trees in a blackberry patch. Holy prickly thorns, Batman. The first couple of trees in this area were obvious. Then it was a game of spot the tree stake through the blackberry canes. Progress was slow as we cleared past to the trees before we could even attempt to remove the tree socks. I worked alongside Land Monkey for this part, and at one point he turned to me and commented on the fact that he was doing his part to save cedar trees. I suggested hanging a nano container in one, but that idea was shot down pretty quickly. All in all, a great CETO event. I had fun. We removed a lot of tree protectors in spite of the rain, And thanks to everyone for coming out today.
Nice.
Good time.
Thank you, Bri Lang.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bri Lang. And I miss doing CETO events with my friends and getting out there one day again soon.
Yes. Hey, in the chat, we have Starcasher. He says, "Greetings, all. I've not seen an episode for 6 weeks. I've been
Welcome
in
back.
Florida due to Sally hurricane damage to my Florida home
Ooh.
and did not have internet. Looking forward to a great show."
Wow. Welcome back, Startcasher. And
Yeah.
hopefully the damage isn't too bad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I also saw a comment from my hand that says, "Do you cedar trees?" Yes, I cedar trees. What are they for, Douglas?
Very clever.
Witty.
All right. Well, folks, if you want to participate in the chat, if you've got questions for our guests as we go through, use the hashtag coin so our chat lackey can make sure he grabs onto your questions and gets them into the show notes for us. And we'll do our best to answer all your questions. So again, that's hashtag coin, COIN, if you have any questions for our guests during the show. And if you've got things to talk about that aren't really what we're talking about tonight, well, of course, that's hashtag FTAS, FTAS, or for the after show.
Oh, so well done. Hey, folks, we got a little bit of news tonight. This just in,
Yes.
right off the hotlines of the geocaching blog. Do you miss the Geocaching International Film Festival this year?
I miss almost everything this year, but yes, that's one of the things I miss this year.
One of the
Yes.
many.
Yes.
In 2020, we've been taking a look back at some of the past 20 years of geocaching, and it wouldn't make sense to leave GIF out of it. On November 17th, we released a best of. We will release. Depends on when you're listening to this. It could have.
Yeah, maybe they're listening on the 20th.
Or you're living in a time warp.
Yeah.
Let's do the time warp again.
Ooh.
It's just a jump to the
You could be
left.
listening to this in 2025 when you just discovered geocaching.
Thanks to Land Monkey's vlogging, it'll survive.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of. On November 17th, we will release a best of GIF film reel, including submissions from every year since 2013. Creative geocachers journeyed to space, hunted for FTFs, fell in love, all in the name of geocaching. Previous winners and honorable mentions from each year will be highlighted. So while we aren't having a souvenir this year, we are capturing the spirit of GIF on one video. You can find it on Facebook, YouTube, and our newsletter on November 17th.
That's
excellent.
Yeah, that's geocaching.com's newsletter, not Caching in the NorthWest's newsletter, just to clarify there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if you were to head over to cashingnw.com,
yes,
you'd see it. We're still holding the contest to name the baby.
Yes.
It's quite the honor. I have to say.
Is.
How is it going? I haven't checked the entries.
We've got some very good entries. And so Mr. and Mrs. Wino Seattle have given us the honor of giving their new baby a geocaching name. So it's going to be crowdsourced from the Caching in the Northwest podcast.
What could possibly go wrong?
I can't imagine, yeah. Other than Cashley McCash Face, we're good.
Hey, that was mine. I came up with Cashley McCash Face.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of the entries have been wine related somehow.
That seems appropriate, actually.
Yeah. So
21 years from now, when baby winos can actually consume wine, you might appreciate that.
It could move to Canada and consume in 19 years.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Exactly.
If you hover on the border, is it 20?
Yes.
Okay.
In 19 years, we may be able to get across the border into Canada.
Yeah, that's about the time it feels like it's going to open. I think it's going to be sooner, maybe 17 and a half years.
So head on over to cashingnw.com/namethebaby and give your entry into Name the Baby.
Excellent. And is there a date by which people need to get their entries in?
That's going to be today.
Last day.
I'm going to cut it off tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to ship the entries off to Mr. and Mrs. Wino Seattle. Let them choose a few favorites, and then we'll post those back up, and you'll be able to choose your favorite out of the curated few.
Wow. All right.
Cool. What about our listeners in Australia where it's already tomorrow?
They still have time because it's not tomorrow here yet.
Okay.
Or our listeners in Eastern Canada or in Eastern US where it's also tomorrow.
Yeah, you just never know.
It has to be tomorrow Pacific Standard Time.
Oh, okay.
Sounds good.
Glad
we
to
can do
clarify
That
that.
means 3 hours. Hurry up.
Oh, and thank goodness we're back on standard time. Boy, I like driving to work in the daylight again. Quit messing with the clocks, people. Just now that we're here, just leave it alone.
So I
for a
heard
few weeks.
Washington State can officially be off of daylight savings time.
Okay.
Let's see. No, what do they want to be off of standard time and use daylight time?
Use daylight time exclusively is what I heard.
But the
Not my
government-
first choice. Yes, not my first choice, but I will accept it if it just means we never have to change again.
Right.
Yeah. Just one or the
So,
other.
so
Yes.
British Columbia has actually approved that, and but waiting for Washington State to do this, and then we're gonna be in the same time zone, but just daylight savings time.
Okay, well, good luck with that because we don't do things very quickly here.
You guys,
As we see, yeah. We're watching the clocks change. Going, damn Americans!
It's all their
Yeah,
fault.
yeah, we're sorry.
there you go. You're learning.
Yeah, I try. The Canadian invasion has begun.
That's right.
Although, looking at the layout on screen, shouldn't the Americans be below the Canadian? Never mind. There you go. There you go. Piece of cake.
Or
Yeah.
geographically correct.
I
Yes.
just corrected the borders. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of Canadians, our guests tonight are from Canada. Not Canada, as I was about to say, because that would be wrong. We are thrilled to have both of you joining us tonight. For those listeners and anybody else that maybe isn't familiar with your background and your geocaching history and whatever you want to share with us, like ATM pin, social security number, any of those kind of things. No, never mind. But do help our listeners get to know you a little bit more. Maybe tell us, let's start with where you're from.
Sure, well, I'll go first. So my name's Chris. I am one half of Landsharks, the other half being my wife, Helen. And so we own landsharks.ca and Sharks Coins, so the geocaching supply business. Hey, there you go, with the nice little shark there. So Helen and I, we've been geocaching for 16 years, I think, something like that. Maybe it's 15 years. And she knows that better than I do. Around 6,000 finds. We like to travel. One of our favorite things is using geocaching as a travel guide. So when we're traveling around, looking for caches, especially ones with lots of favorite points, and going there and using that as sort of a guide to get around. We live in Victoria, British Columbia, so right out on the west coast. The order of the squares is appropriate here because Jay is in Langley, which is way east, but he's in eastern Canada.
Yeah.
And we're way out in the west. And what else? That's me. I'll turn over to Diego here.
Okay, well, I'm Diego. Actually, I'm not Canadian. Actually, I'm from Mexico, but I've been living here in Victoria for almost 2 years now.
Hmm.
And I started working here at Landsharks as a graphic designer, I think a little bit more than a year now.
Yeah.
And by that time is when I discovered geocaching. So I've been geocaching for 12 months, actually. But I have like some pretty interesting stories about geocaching. My first 12 months of geocaching, it's real time actually. So, well, as I mentioned, I moved from Mexico. I'm still getting used to the day here, which is like pretty not existing right now. You have like 5 or 6 hours of daylight.
Yeah.
But
Wait till the end of the year. It gets even worse.
Oh yeah, I know. I've been here. Last year I was here, and so it was news. It was like kind of exciting, like, oh, it's getting dark at 4:30, and this year's like, oh, it's getting dark at 12:30. But still, I love being here.
Yeah. Well, mucho gusto. Bienvenidos a Caching in the Northwest.
Muchas gracias.
You are
So-
so international.
He is really very
Yeah.
impressive.
3 años español en la escuela. 30 años pasado.
Muy impresionante. Very impressive.
And that's for the international listeners of the podcast.
Diego told me earlier that if he kind of loses track of what he was going to talk about, he'll just start speaking
Yeah,
in
I'm so speaking
Spanish.
Spanish.
I'm sure we have Spanish-speaking listeners. I'm
I
sure.
can't see
Yeah.
any problem with that at all.
So, Diego, you said that you've recently started geocaching. Do you have any particularly memorable recent adventures before we get into tonight's topic?
Yeah, actually, I have one really good story. So on late August, I tried to find I think one of the most hardest geocaches to find in Vancouver Island. It's located at the top of the Golden Hind, which is the tallest mountain in Vancouver Island. And well, actually, it was quite a trip. We were planning to do it in 5 days, so it's a backpacking trip. We have to like plan it really good, and yeah, it was awesome. So that was the main goal, to try to hike at the top of the Golden Hind. But things didn't get as planned. But we had like a backup. It turns out that in that same park, the Strathcona Park, there were other 4 geocaches beside the one that it's in the very top. So the plan was to try to find every single those.
That's on the trail up there.
That's on the way there. Yeah, one of them is like not quite over the trail. Actually, you have to deviate, and it's like a 1 hour hike outside of the main trail, which is kind of interesting. So we start planning that with, well, it was me and my partner. We planned that like for a couple of weeks, like trying to dial in all the details and all the equipment that we're gonna need. And oh man, what a grind it was! It's exhausting to get there. I mean, it's like 5 days of backpacking, carrying everything you need there, like tent, food, water. Well, water is pretty easy to find here, but still you have to carry some water. And the plan was to start finding each geocache as we were going, but I think it was day 1. We were really exhausted, and I just checked the GPS, and we already passed the first one. But like, okay, I can come back later and pick it up that later on our way back. So that happened to me twice. Actually, I missed the first 2 ones. The first one and the first day and the second day. Anyways, we found something pretty interesting there. Like the geocaches, there were almost every single one of those were lonely caches. Some of them were found 2015, 5 years ago. And the cache in the Hind last time was found was in 2017. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make it to the very top. We were exhausted. We underestimated the mountain. We have to have a lot of respect to nature and everything. And we were just not able to complete it. But as soon as we made the decision to just turn back and enjoy the rest of our trip, we start really getting into, enjoying everything that was out there, nature, even the pain. I mean, you can start to loving it or enjoying
Loving
it.
the pain.
Loving the pain. It's like it's like
That's
it's
like
like-
the adventure.
yeah, it was quite an adventure. So the last geocache that I found on that trip was the first one that I missed. actually, that was been sitting there without being found for 10 years. Last time it was found was 2010, long time ago.
Very cool.
So
Wow.
it was really interesting seeing like those geocachers were still there, hiding, waiting for someone to be there. Interesting thing, most of them were in pretty good shape. We just found one, or I think that I found one, but that was completely destroyed. I had to remove it because it looked like a squirrel. I know something, maybe a bird, chew it up and spit it there, and they were just like pieces of logbook and everything everywhere. So
Oh,
I just had to remove it. Sad, but it was quite a trip.
you know, in my first year of caching, I don't think I even knew what lonely caches were. So, Diego, you're
Yeah.
so much more advanced than I am now, I think.
Oh well,
Wow.
neither did I. But I had Chris here that he has taught me everything I had to know about geocaching. Actually, he lent me his spot, which is actually a really important piece of equipment to have if you are going to adventure into backcountry. So for people who doesn't know, a spot is it's like a one-way communication device that you use to send okay signal. I'm not that okay, but I'm gonna survive, and please get me out of here SAAP because I'm dying. And that's pretty cool to have because you feel like you are somehow.
So we were following his trip from here.
Yeah,
which
they
is
were
good.
following me.
And we never got the come and get me, so that was good.
Yeah. Oh, you can also send a custom message. That was I made it to the top. We're heading back, which they didn't receive as well. We never made it there.
Now, Chris and Diego, could each of you share how long you've been involved in design work? We're here to talk about GeoCoins tonight. And what got you interested in designing and working with GeoCoins?
So I've been designing coins for about 15 years, and but doing graphic design for about a little over 20 years. Basically, we ran a company that, well, we still do a lot of work with BC Parks making signs. So the idea of designing or creating a product from design is something that I've been doing for a long time. And it started with a BC coin that I put there was a discussion forum 15 years ago. People were interested in doing a coin representing British Columbia. I put just sort of threw something together and put it on this discussion forum, and that people said, "Hey, you know, that's kind of cool." And then it sort of sat there and didn't do anything. And then finally, it was a case of, okay, well, who's going to make this? So we did a little bit of research and about how that's done. Found out that most of the coin producers in North America use offshore factories, and so how am I actually basically at that point made that first coin, and I think we did 1,000 of them at the time, and they were sold before we even had them in our hands. And then people started asking us to do coins for them, and it kind of grew from there. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Wow. Hey, Rory says Chris did ours in 2005.
Yeah, Rory was one of the first ones, and actually Rory's was kind of cool because I know we're going to talk about this a bit later, but Rory started as literally a pencil sketch on a napkin, just a couple of little stick figures, and it's and we did up what I think is one of the most fun coins. It's really cool, and I know that Rory's never sold them. He's traded his coins and used that to help grow his collection, and it's actually that coin holds a special place in my heart. It's fun. It was actually really hard for the factory to make. It was really challenging, but we coached them through it.
And yeah, well, I actually have like 3 years of experience like doing graphic designer, but I never designed coin before. This is completely new for me. It all started because I was hired to work here. It's been interesting. Actually, my background is actually mechanical engineering, and I have more experience like mechanical design. But this has been like quite a trip, like switching from that like sport-minded engineering aspect to like more creative for design. It's really cool. And designing coins, I don't know, it's really interesting. It has taught me a lot, especially from that like artistic point of view.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting balance with some of the coin designs I've seen, especially where multiple coins to come together for events, that mechanical engineering and artistic design can really work together well, create some amazing coins.
So I'm actually an engineer too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm more amazed all the time.
Engineers.
I'm more amazed all the time, and the fact that you've been doing it for 15 years, which means Helen started when she was about 12 years old. This is just incredible. So many of our listeners have admired and collected various GeoCoins and collectibles and trackables, and we understand that Sharks Coins makes more than just GeoCoins. Can you maybe explain the difference between a GeoCoin and a challenge coin?
Sure. So a GeoCoin, basically they're exactly the same thing, but the difference being what kind of purpose they serve. And you mentioned Sharks Coins, and we've also mentioned Land Sharks. So what we actually started doing coins under the Land Sharks name, and then once we deviated away from just GeoCoins, a lot of our clients would come to us looking for coins, but they didn't know what geocaching was, and it would be confusing to look on a geocaching site for coin information. So we actually kind of separated our business into the coin production side, which is Sharks Coins, and the geocaching side, which is Land Sharks. And so the GeoCoins, as most people know, they're collectible coins. One of the defining features of them is that they're very often trackable. So they'll say track at geocaching.com or some similar words to that effect, and there'll be a 6-digit tracking number so that they're so they can be tracked. Other than that, they can represent anything. All kinds of different types of art. I've got one in my hand, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but it's a streaker coin. For those that are lucky enough to be on the live thing, it's that there, and
oh, nice.
And it's got
look at that.
Yeah, where's the tracking number? I just got that. But anyway, so this hasn't been activated yet. So coins like that. On this particular one, it says trackable at geocaching.com, and it has a tracking number just down on the bottom of the coin. And a challenge coin, like a GeoCoin, is same idea. Here's one. It's an RCMP coin, and this one's black nickel, but it basically represents an RCMP unit, Lower Mainland District in this particular case, Integrated Emergency Response Team. So those guys would have that coin made for their group. There's also lots of military ones, and like GeoCoins, they can be shaped. So here's one that's given out to the West Coast Pacific Fleet Sailor of the Quarter. Nice shaped coin with ships on it. We do lots and lots of military coins. A golden shellback is somebody who's crossed the equator at the date line, and this particular coin was done for HMCS Regina when they crossed. I think it was the Regina. When they crossed the equator I think it was about a year or so ago. So those are the challenge coins are used by military, police, fire departments, and groups like that. But essentially, if the coin is collectible by geocachers and it's got the tracking number and tracking thing on it, then that's a GeoCoin. So that essentially they're the same type of thing.
Nice. I seem to recall Land Monkey coming up with using challenge coins as an explanation for GeoCoins at the border crossing once. Because it's hard to explain a GeoCoin. But most Border Patrol agents know what a challenge coin is.
They do, and Canadian Border Control and also U.S. Border Control both they both use challenge coins to commemorate their. I
thought that was brilliant. I wouldn't have made that connection, so that was great.
Yeah.
Well, it was because of my experience of knowing Helen and Chris that I was able to compute that quickly and go, okay, this is gonna make things a lot easier.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So when somebody comes to you guys, Diego and Chris, for a new coin, where does the process typically start? You mentioned that you've Rory came to you with a napkin sketch.
Yeah.
Do people need to have their artwork drawn out already? Like, how does this usually kick off?
So the process usually starts off. We have a small sales team here, so we start the process off usually with them, and that's Helen, Christy, and Beth. And so what will happen is those guys will just liaise with the customer, whoever's the person that wants to make the coin. And what they'll do is they'll request some basic information, so get a sense of what type of coin they'd like, maybe an idea of how many colors are going to be on it, what types of metals people like. And it doesn't have to be written in stone at that point, but what they do is they get enough information so that they can prepare a quote. During that process, we use a number of different factories. I think right now we're using 4 different factories, depending on what it is exactly we're making, the techniques and so on that we're using. So they'll decide which factory this is going to go to. They'll get a quote from that factory, build out the quote for the client, and send that back. And if the person's comfortable with that, then the coin and its specifications and what it is we're doing goes into our project management system. And at that point, it gets handed off to either Diego or Monique. Sometimes myself. I'm not actually drawing so many coins nowadays. Usually this guy's drawing a lot of the coins. And then it goes from there. So that's kind of how the process starts.
Okay. Now, I can imagine you get a whole range of submissions for coins, right? You may get a napkin sketch from a bar. You may get somebody who really knows how to draw and come up with a pretty detailed drawing. You may get people with just, hey, I want this on the coin. Here, let me just send you some words. I'm looking for, this, and the other thing. And, some may even have digital art that they've put together. How do you get all this together and come up with, something that looks good?
Okay, well, for that, we can actually have different types of input from the client. It can be something as elaborate as a Adobe Illustrator file, or something as just someone who phone us and describe what he wants, and we only have like a bunch of notes. So the first thing that we have to do is like figure out what he wants. And after that, we try to translate everything. If we have like a good piece of artwork or just like notes, we have to translate it to coin language. So that's basically something that it can be stamped out in a coin and something that the factory can understand. So that's like the first process, like the first step, like creatively speaking. We try to draw it using Adobe Illustrator. That is the tool that we have here. And we have some basic rules about what the factory can and what they can do. So we try to interpret the vision of the client as close as possible, but in a way that it can be stamped. Because I mean, like, we have like a die that is pressed into metal, so it's not a delicate process.
Mm-hmm.
So some like really thin and fine lines can be done. So we have to, like moderate what the client wants and what can actually be done. So we try to do our best to translate the vision of the client into an actual metal product.
I can imagine there's a lot of communication going back and forth. Yeah, I want this, and well, here's what you really can get. Do you have any standard templates or sizes or formats that the design needs to comply with? I mean, Christy says there was one time we got a beautiful poster-sized artist-drawn draft.
Yeah.
So that may be a little too big to send to a factory.
Well, maybe they want a really big coin.
Yeah.
Coin. So we never. Well, I say never. 99.9% of the time, the client's art or what they send us is not what goes to the factory. We redraw everything, and in some cases, it's good enough that it will translate really easily, but usually it needs some modifications. There are some templates. Well, I'd say templates. There's some standard sizes like 45 millimeters, 38 millimeters, things like that. But realistically, you can make them any size, any shape. We've actually made coins that are, I don't know, about 4+ inches in diameter, down to ones that they're the size of your baby fingernail. So you can really do a wide variety. What Diego's talking about is some of the limitations. There are some factors that go into it. Cost is one, because you can sort of throw everything at a coin. So it's important for us to understand somebody's budget. But at the same time, when we're drawing it, there's like colors that fade or shade from one color to another are very challenging. Usually we use solid colors. There's a limited number of translucent colors that you can do really well. The size of the details is a challenging one. So we kind of joke that it's like drawing with a bingo marker, because there's only, the dies need to be strong enough to press into the metal. So if you have super fine areas, the dies can't. Yeah. So the dies need to be strong enough, which means that the areas of recessed metal and the areas of raised metal have sort of a minimum width to them, which when you're drawing a small piece of art is kind of difficult. So it's kind of like drawing with a bingo marker. So Rory just in the chat, they're saying like the small X's on our hand painted, that are hand painted. So his coin, BMX cross stitcher is on his coins. We have this cross stitch bear, and the challenge was that we could draw it and it looked great. It had all these little different colored cross stitches and it looked like a bear. But when they stamped the coin, all there was a whole bunch of little crosses to fill in with paint. And the factory stamped the coins and they sent us a picture of this coin and said, "We don't know what to do with this. We can't. There's just all these little X's. We got no like nothing to do, no way to do this." So we kind of coached them through finding a reference point and then working out from that reference point. And they were able to do a good job. But the coins are painted by hand, so they're not all they're very close to identical, but sometimes there are some slight variations and things like that. So all of these things come into consideration: the types of metal finishes that we're going to use. And what we do is usually we'll select a factory that can do the best job of that particular technique, because most of the different factories we use are sort of expert in different areas of this. So yeah, so the world, you can kind of do anything, but there's sort of templates, but not really. If you want a less expensive coin, going with a standard size means there's not going to be a custom die to stamp it out. So that brings some of that kind of thing is where it can be incorporated, but then really we can do pretty well anything.
Well, we've seen lots of different looking coins, even the samples you were showing us earlier on the start of the show here. And of course, for those who are listening by audio, they couldn't see those, but maybe you could describe for the listeners, what is there a standard metal that coins are made from, or is there a variation?
So there's essentially 3 different metals that are used fairly commonly. Iron is one that can be used for coins. It's stamped. It actually feels really light and cheap in your hand. It doesn't make a particularly nice coin. It is used for lapel pins quite more often, and it works well with lapel pins. But iron is one, and we typically don't use that for coins. Zinc is another one. Zinc is melted and then cast into the shape of a coin. And some factories and a lot of companies will actually produce all their coins with zinc because it's a little cheaper than using brass. So coins like our Sailor of the Quarter is a shaped coin, and pretty well any shaped coin has to be, it can be made of brass, but usually they're made of zinc because they're die cast.
Okay.
And then the majority of what we do though is the coins are round, say about 90% of them are round, and they're made out of stamped brass, and then they're plated with metal platings on the surface. So if you're looking at a gold, what we call a gold coin, a polished gold coin, it's actually stamped brass with gold electroplating, so a very thin surface of gold, or it might be
Sure.
silver, or it might be black nickel, or something like that. But the brass, it's a little bit more expensive than the zinc for a regular round coin. But it feels, when you feel it in your hand, wow, that feels really nice. Whereas if you feel the same coin in zinc, kind of, or even worse, iron, you kind of feel, it feels kind of, doesn't have much weight to it. And the weight really kind of gives it a nice, feel. So those are your three: zinc, brass, and iron. We do as much as we can out of brass. If it really has to be shaped for really super deep relief, then it's zinc, and then we'll use iron for lapel pins sometimes, but otherwise you'll never see it on our coins.
That's funny, because out of the three, I would think iron would have been the heaviest.
Yeah.
You'd think, yeah. It's nice and magnetic.
Yes, because they're very ferrous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So material, obviously very important, and different qualities and that kind of thing. But for a lot of people, really, it's all about the design. It's all about the look. How do you know? You go through drafts and different revisions, and I'm sure you work with the client a lot, but how do you know when the design is ready to say, okay, this is my final design, let's make this coin?
Well, actually, we talk a lot with the clients. So when they first give us their input, we send them a first draft. And most of the times, like a lot of times, they ask for some changes. I don't know, it can be a minor revision, as I know, put something slightly above, like to right, to left, or it can be a major change, because sometimes the client, when they see like how the design is going to look on a coin, they're like, no, maybe I'll change my mind. And sometimes they completely change the design, so we have to redraw everything. But that's part of the process. So we go back and forth with them until they are absolutely happy with the design. And sometimes they're still like not convinced, so we can make samples for them so they can actually see how the product is going to look like. And at that point, we can mostly change the plating and the colors. But sometimes that's something super important for the client, and we can fine tweak those details. Sometimes the client expects the coin to look in a certain way using polished nickel, let's say, that's really shiny. But sometimes 3D designs or 3D textures on the coins looks better on antique platings, because they have like a grittier texture. They have like something that gives them like more detail to those concave or raised surfaces.
So the skull in this one, for example, would be an antique.
That's an antique one. So we can make a sample for the client and show them like, oh, hey, this is your coin on a polished plating, and this is an antique plating, and they can choose. So until they are like very happy with the design and the final result, we give a good to go to the factory to make the mass production of their coins.
Really
Interesting.
cool.
I wouldn't have thought the plating would change the look of the design, but that's true. I mean, if it's shinier, you're going to lose some of the fine details.
Yeah.
If it's a little more dull or gritty in the antique look.
Yeah. Could you change? Go ahead.
Sorry, and sometimes you have results that you don't expect. Sometimes it can look super good on a shiny plating, and you weren't expecting that. So it's cool to have the opportunity to make samples in different platings or with different colors, so you may have a result that you never expected.
Yeah, like changing a hole into a full moon.
You know, that can happen.
Just throwing that out there for, I don't know that that would ever happen, but.
Now, so you've worked back and forth with a client. You come up with artwork that you both just love, and the coin is ready to go to production.
Yeah.
What does that mean, and what are the next steps moving forward?
So from a client side, we're working with a customer. It's their coin, so we'll let them know it's going to production. What that means basically is that we We then take the art. It's no longer going to go back and forth with the customer, but we'll do some production notes on the art, maybe make a few very small modifications related to the production side of it. And then we send it to the factory that we're using for that particular coin. The factories, before they cut dies and start stamping them, what they do is they redraw the coin again based on how they're going to make the dies. And there can be, in some factories we work with, we'll put the 2D and 3D art. So basically the flat surfaces we call the 2D and the sculpted surfaces like a skull, for example, would be 3D art. So they'll send us back, sometimes in one piece of art, sometimes they'll send them back separately. And we'll look at it and go, that's not quite what we were expecting. So let's see if we can make some changes here. And we'll go back and forth with the factory. I'd say it's pretty rare that it's perfect on the first go, and sometimes it can take 5, 6 more back and forths in order to get it right. So once we're happy with what the factory is going to produce, then we authorize them to go ahead and cut the dies and start making coins. And that can take the form of making samples, or it can take the form of just running the production. So if we've been doing this for quite a long time, as you know, so if it's the type of thing where we've seen this before many times, we're confident that this is going to look good. We know that this particular factory is really good at doing this, so we'll just say, yeah, go for it. However, sometimes we're doing a new technique, or we might be looking at it and thinking, this could look good in antique silver, it could look in antique bronze. Maybe we're going to be doing some of both, so we'll run a set of samples, and then we show the customer the samples, and then we'll proceed from there. So that part of it will be determined by if the customer's in a rush for the coins, because it does add a bit of time to do the samples. Because then you're running the samples, you stop production, you take pictures, and they sometimes pictures are enough. Other times you want to get the samples shipped out to somebody to have a look. So that obviously adds some time to the process. So if you're trying to get something ready for Christmas, probably, and you're into October and November, you're probably not going to be running samples. Yeah, so that's kind of what that is. There's a whole sort of set of activities that takes place, very much like doing the art originally, but a whole set of activities that then takes place between us and the factory to make sure that we're going to produce something that we like. And that's one of the, some people sort of do coin design and then send it off to another company to deal with the factories. Because we see the whole thing through from start to finish, I think we're in a bit of a unique place to kind of really understand how that process works and work directly with the factories.
Very cool. So, Chris and Diego, if some of our listeners, they've now kind of heard the whole process start to finish, they understand what they can bring you to get the idea started. They can get a quote and then start going through the whole design process. If they're keen to begin, if they've got an idea, that they've been sitting on an idea for a coin for a while, how should they start?
They should send us an email. Probably the best way, connect@sharks.ca. So connect and then SHARKZ.ca. And that will put them in touch with either, that email address goes to Helen, Beth, and Christy. And then one of those three will pick that up and then start talking to the person who'd like to make the coin and start the process.
All right, I predict a flood of emails to that address.
Well, that's good, because we do have a flood of emails pretty well all the time. So it's we're quite happy to help anybody produce a coin. What's the impact?
We have a question from the chat from our way that says, what is the impact on the cost of doing small runs of different finishes versus a larger run of all the same finish?
Yeah, so that's a good question, actually, and there's two parts to that answer. One of them is that the overall quantity is actually probably the largest determining factor in the price, in the per unit price of the coins. If you were getting 50 coins made, they're going to be a lot more expensive per coin than if you're getting 500 coins made. We usually say 100 coins is where the price starts to fall into most people's comfort zone. However, if you have 100 coins made and half of them are going to be in antique silver and half of them are going to be in antique bronze, it doesn't add much to the cost at all. It's really it's almost negligible. The antique silver in this, is a little bit more expensive than antique bronze, but only, by a few cents type of thing. So it's not like running two sets of production. It's running one production batch with a small variation. So the same is true for like if you wanted to paint one with different colors of paints. It doesn't add to the cost. It just means that they're going to be going down two small paths during the production process.
Because they use the same dye or mold or whatever.
They're using the same mold. They're still producing them at the same time. They don't have to sort of start and stop production. They'll run that whole run right through all at once. So the cost of the production is basically just the difference in the platings and stuff.
Okay.
But it's not like running two runs. So it's negligible.
Okay. Just to kind of bring things together, are there any other considerations that a coin creator needs to consider before it goes to production? A custom icon or anything, or?
Yeah. So for GeoCoins, there's tracking numbers. Icons get produced in two sizes. We do that as part of the production, as part of the art process, as we'll put together the icons. Assuming that a person is going to use a custom icon with geocaching.com. Coins do need to be approved by geocaching.com, and when we request the tracking numbers from geocaching.com, we send them the coin art. And there's this streaker coin. I showed it a little earlier, but if you're a geocaching streaker, you'll notice that the little naked guy there who's streaking has a censored sign over his butt. And that was not censored by us. when we drew this guy up, he was Starkers. And when we sent it to geocaching.com, although his one leg is in front of the other, so you can't see any man parts, there is a butt cheek under there. and geocaching.com didn't want to show the butt cheek. And a little sneaky thing, this podcast, it's like a secret, right?
Yeah, it's the buttockle region.
The buttockle region, exactly. So if you were to look, it's not even going to show if I show you on the camera, but there's a very little tiny flag after the censored. It's the flag off the geocaching.com corporate logo, just to give a hint of who actually censored this. And so when we sent it back with the censored, I'm not sure that they actually noticed that little flag, but it's just a little fun thing. So we have fun with them, but they do need to be approved by geocaching.com. So that's another consideration. So you don't get any. So is it a sticker you can remove? No, it's not a sticker you can remove.
I think you mentioned it, but we'll just bring up a question from Rory. It says, how many coins do you need to make its own icon now? When we did it, it was 500.
Yeah, it used to be 500. Honestly, I don't know the exact number. There you go. Helen's got the answer.
Helen seems to think it's 50 now. It's way different than it was back in 2005.
Yeah. I was actually going to run out that way and leave Diego here on his own and go and ask her.
Oh, she's got you covered.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just like your Starkers guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, something else about GeoCoin.
Yeah.
So sometimes GeoCoin also comes with a small tag. So usually geocachers doesn't like to send the actual coin to Crowley, so they send a tag. So we can make a companion tag with the coin, so you can send the tag to Crowley. And they're going to have the same tracking number. Actually, there they have a matching tracking number. So you can have your coin, send the tag to Crowley. And the artwork is, of course, related. So I wouldn't have it here. It would be nice. But the Caching the World coin, one coin that we have, it has like related artwork in the tag and the coin. So that's something else that we can do. Companion tag for your coins.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a tag to be able to send out and keep this, this beautifully designed, well-built coin in your, collection. But you also, at the same time, the whole reason you got it is to send it out to, have people discover it and find it. So you want to have the best of both worlds.
I'll tell you something I tell people sometimes, and they're a little aghast by this. And you know what I'm going to say, Jay? So sometimes if you're going to send a coin out, there's a real good chance that it'll go traveling for a while and then it'll disappear. Sometimes people will end up taking them. I don't think it's by it's malicious. I would say 90% of the time it's somebody that doesn't realize that it's not a trade, that it's not a trade item, and they'll just trade and keep the coin and not realize what's going on. Usually, not so experienced geocachers. So what I suggest people do, since you're sending it out and you're kind of giving it out to go now, it's not part of your collection as such anymore. You're not going to be showing it off in the book. Is drill a hole through it, and you can either put a little tag on there that says "Please keep me moving," or just drill a hole in it, because what ends up happening is it's no longer really a collectible thing. People will look at it and go, "Oh yeah, that's pretty nice," and they'll hopefully not take it for themselves because the thing has a hole in it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of giving it up anyways to go and travel. You don't expect to really see it again. So you can put a little hole in there, stick a tag on it. It's no longer as stealable, if that's what happens, even by accident. And but at the same time, you can have a tag on there that says "Keep me going."
So you suggest drilling a hole through that censored tag.
Maybe there's something inside there.
Right? Maybe not. There's I can confirm from personal experience that some of my trackables have traveled and then just disappeared.
And then they just disappear. Yeah. So that can help keep them going a bit longer.
Chris and Diego, it's been a joy talking to you. Now, we've had the chance to talk to you. Our listeners, I think, would like the chance to talk to you, to learn about the GeoCoins you've made and what you can make for them. What is some of the best ways to get a hold of you?
Well, we've got two websites to have a look at. One is landsharks.ca, so LANDSHARKZ, and also sharkscoins.ca. Both of those connect to us, so you can have a look at either one. Landsharks is more of the sales side of the house. If you wanted to buy some GeoCoins, that's where you're going to find them, and other geocaching supplies. But the Sharks Coins is the one that's designed specifically around coins, and it's more designed. You can see we have a gallery of coins in there with hundreds and hundreds of coins, so you can get a real good sense of what's out there. The techniques and the art and the ideas that you'll see on military and police and those types of coins certainly can be applied to GeoCoin, so it's a great place to get some ideas. But that's on sharkscoins.ca, so SHARKZCOINS.ca. And then you can contact us directly at connect@sharks.ca, as I mentioned earlier.
Nice. I put those links into the chat, so people listening or watching this later will be able to jump in and find those quickly.
Awesome.
And Komakino, I guess, is offering if there's any comic art needed, and I can speak from personal experience. He's quite a talented comic.
Yes.
There's a lot of talented artists out there. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's actually really nice to see some of the things people can put together. Yeah.
Well, Chris and Diego, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we do have this thing called the After Show, which if you want to join us, we'll answer questions. Hopefully they're related to the chat or to the topic tonight. They may not be. They may be completely unrelated, and that's okay too. But folks, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Now, next week, that's November 12th, we're going to have Stephen Hugh, the author of 105 Hikes in Southwest BC. Oh, that sounds exciting. And then the week after, that's November 19th. Can you believe we're coming up this quickly on the end of the year?
I can.
Okay. Well, we are. Apparently I can't.
You asked, I answered something.
It was a rhetorical question.
That doesn't stop me from answering it.
Okay. So November 19th, we are going to have Search and Rescue, North Shore. Now, if you know what's going on, you know that this is going to be a new TV show right up there in the BC area. So we're going to be able to talk to the producers of the show and understand what they're doing on the North Shore. for search and rescue.
Yeah, those those next 2 episodes are going to be a lot of fun, some different stuff. Definitely for us to have those guys on the podcast. But this week has been great as well. And so again, thank you very much, Chris and Diego, for taking the time tonight to explain to all of us how a GeoCoin gets made. I found it fascinating.
Yes, me too.
There's even stuff, even having been through the process with you, there's stuff I still learned tonight. So a huge thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And this is the moment we take to thank Land Sharks, our corporate Denali level sponsor. Landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. Remember, they are shipping online orders daily. Chris?
And of course, we want to thank our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Land Sharks, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cashly. If you want to know more about supporting the show, click the Patreon link on the cashingnw.com website. You know, like Just Finding Our Way did.
And Acrodoc.
And Team Noltex.
B Pendragon.
T. Sayer.
Kitty Quest.
Wet Coaster.
Billy Robson.
Sege Hove.
Subway Mark.
GSM times 2.
Nerve.
Keats 94.
Dora Moore.
Log Work.
Tick Magnet.
Sprouter.
MC3 Cats.
LG 9000.
On a Boat.
Fairwood West.
Genies.
Kev MacD.
Green Words.
And Teus.
Boomer 365.
Wino Seattle.
And Limax.
Kennel Barb.
Kid Vegas 19.
Hey, listening tonight, the Geo Travelers.
CRS 98.
Seebeck Tribe.
Broncos fan for life.
Hello Robrick.
The Camp Clan.
Utalks to Rocks.
GeoNav Pros.
Trexer Zero.
And our newest one, Donners.
Ah, Donners, I'm staring at you.
We're all staring right at you, Donners.
That's right.
Oh, thank you.
Even us.
Yeah. Okay, she's creeped out now, I can tell. All right, as we've mentioned, Chris, Diego, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If somebody was listening to this podcast on the highway and they just pulled over, got their pen and paper out one more time, how can people reach you?
They can reach us at 2 websites, landsharks.ca or sharkscoins.ca, email connect@sharks.ca. On Instagram and YouTube, we're Go Land Sharks, and on Facebook and Twitter, we're Land Sharks.
Fantastic. Well, folks, if you're new here and you're still trying to figure out who's who, well, that guy in the blue, which really works well on audio, that's Chris, the NorthWest. The guy right below me, well, that's Wits End, and I'm Land Monkey, and we're all out there on the social media, the Geocaching Message Center. But you can find bios, contact information, and more at cashingnw.com/hosts.
And thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Don't forget that you can be part of the show. Call into 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, or send us a time capsule from the North Pole anytime of the day or night. Of course, you can email us at feedback@cashingnw.com. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. So if you like the show, click the Patreon link on the cashingnw.com website and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Give us a thumbs up or a review. The show's produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, and Jay Kennedy. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Copyright 2020 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
It never fails to amuse.
It really
So
doesn't.
when Jim was looking up at Jay, it kind of reminded me of the Brady Bunch.
Yes. Yes, so we're going way back to Laugh-In.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Takes practice,
it does.
Yeah.
It does.
especially the side to side, because you always
Yeah.
got to remember which side you're actually looking on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
this
he's
is all
actually-
right in here.
Easier there.
you guys got it
Yeah.
easier here.
Yeah, we got Chris over Chris there.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have
let's
had a
see.
little bit of tasks. We have Iham. He says he was able to get some smileys this weekend by doing a couple of adventure labs in the Old Town neighborhood of Tacoma.
That's a good cover town.
Where's the Old Town neighborhood of Tacoma? Whereabouts?
Just down the hill from me.
Yeah, from Chris's house. He looks down on them.
Yeah. So they called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Not a lot. Well, we're already halfway through an adventure lab, down at Old Town here. I'm like, that's like half a mile away from me.
Yeah.
He goes, "There's another one." Okay. So I jet out of the house and get, yay, let's go do some adventure labs with my friends. And, I get to the hill and I realize, stink, I didn't grab a mask. I got to turn around and go back home. Like, do they have a mask I could borrow? Let me look at it. No, I don't have one in this car.
Little tip, don't borrow a mask.
Yeah.
Just saying, yeah.
That's yucky.
I was thinking of a disposable mask that could,
Yeah, that's not borrowing, though. Borrowing a mask is like borrowing someone's underwear. It's just not something you do.
It's the nicer way of saying, give me a mask.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, I turn around. In fact, I text my son. I said, hey, meet me out front with a mask. I forgot one. And he did. Drove by, met up. And, it's kind of wrong to be able to grab 10 geocaches, 10 adventure lab locations within half an hour and claim that, but we did it. So
adventure labs are adventure labs, right?
That's right.
Different type of experience.
So that was fun. Wet Coaster says, time for me to increase my find count in BC. I'm in the process of moving back here full time. Oh, very nice.
Well, welcome home.
It's about time.
Yeah. I'm sure Green Words will be happy.
Nice. Brylang was bad in the chat.
He was.
And?
He says, how a GeoCoin is made. When a mommy GeoCoin and a daddy GeoCoin love each other very much.
Yes.
Could have been a much shorter podcast.
Yeah.
Bad chat lackey.
Hey, one detail about GeoCoin making that did occur to me.
Yeah.
These molds, when you do mold a GeoCoin, is that ceramic? Is it a lost clay thing? How do they make these molds? Are they a one-off and they're destroyed? I've seen lots of different mold processes, but what's a GeoCoin molding process look like? Do you know?
Well, the majority of the coins you do are the stamped brass coins, so they're not actually a mold; they're a die.
Okay.
So they're basically they're a machine tool steel negative of the coin. Coin that's made, and then they're just stamped under pressure, squeeze the relatively soft brass into that shape. And then the ones that are die cast, there are some different techniques. So most of them, the molds they end up in there's kind of like a silicone type of in a wheel, if you like.
Yeah,
and they're just a casting process where the zinc goes down through the middles. Centrifugal force basically throws it out into the cavity of the dies, and then they're snapped off and put together. So with or then cleaned up and painted and so on. So you can actually see, especially on the die cast coins, you can actually see the a line around the outside edge, kind of the split point of those dies.
Oh, yeah.
And on the stamped ones, of course, there's no split point, but the edges are usually polished up after they're stamped out of the solid block.
Yeah, I love to watch the how it's made type TV shows and those kind of things. They fascinate me. So. Yeah,
and Helen's piped in there. She just said that they were told the molds for the coins usually weigh about 60 pounds. They're relatively small tool steel discs that can withstand a lot of.
And do they keep those on file then? If you come back a year later and say, I want to make another run of those?
Yeah, it actually depends on the factory. Some of the factories keep them for life. The factory that we've used for the longest, and in fact the one that made Rory's coin, to see him asking about that, they actually keep the dies for 3 years.
Okay.
And so if we're doing a remake on a coin and it's been longer than that, then we do actually have to cut new dies.
Okay.
Are these dies handmade, or is it like a CNC process?
It's a CNC process.
Okay.
Okay.
I would assume as much.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Pretty detailed.
And that's why they redraw our art, because what they're doing is they're actually making the cut files for the CNC machines, and then they give us a visual representation of the cut files, and that's what we look at and evaluate and work back and forth to make sure we get.
Nice.
Brian Lang wants to know, can you make chocolate GeoCoins?
Ask Helen to answer that.
Go ask your mother.
Yeah. I haven't seen any, but we would send you to a chocolatier.
I think I remember somebody had chocolate, like trackable chocolates, chocolate GeoCoins at GeoCoin Fest.
JP.
That's
had
right.
them.
Okay.
And JP and who else? Chris Mackey.
Okay. Yeah. No,
I think they went together. Yeah, so it was just one tracking number across hundreds of chocolate coins.
Okay. Because once I eat a chocolate, I no longer want to track it.
Yeah.
No.
You can keep that little piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had them printed on, the standard chocolate coins with the gold foil around the outside.
Yeah. Cool.
Very cool.
I'm waiting for a note from Helen to pop up. There it is. I believe that Rogers Chocolates make the chocolate coins.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I don't know who Roger is, but I think he should become my new
Rogers Chocolates is one of the better chocolate makers in this area anyway.
Very cool. Well,
That's
it's
great.
been very informative tonight.
Oh, so
Chris,
much.
Diego, nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. Pleasure to be here, as always.
Can't wait until we have an event. We can all get together and see each other.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Ham says, I think Goblin Dust had some made up for one of the pirate events at one point.
Oh, there you go.
That wouldn't confuse me at all.
Chocolate coins, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and Helen shared that Rogers is Canada's first and finest chocolate company. I'm holding the finest quality standards, just as our founder Charles Candy Rogers did over 125 years ago.
There you go. You know you're in the right business when they name you Candy. Wait,
Too funny.
maybe that wouldn't work well.
No.
Okay. What's in? Did you have a story to tell us?
Well, not so much a story as a question, a comment, a discussion, and maybe it's one for another time. I was listening to some stuff on the way home this evening from work, and I heard about NDB. Anybody familiar with an NDB? It fascinated me, and it's always interesting to me when a topic, subject, or something comes up that I never even knew existed. It's a nano diamond battery made from nuclear waste, of all things.
I have heard this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was just fascinated with them. I mean, they're talking about batteries that will last years without recharging because they're based on nuclear. And I thought, well, what a great way to use some of the nuclear waste in the world too.
And a good way just to spread that nuclear waste all around instead of piling
Absolutely.
it up.
What else are you going to do
Everybody
with
have
it?
a little, and then it can't be so bad.
Yeah.
Where are these in use?
I don't know. I just heard about them like 3 hours ago, and I got the impression it's kind of I don't know if it's still in the concept phase, still if it's something that's actually in production, but it was just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at nano diamond batteries. You can go to ndb.technology because, why wouldn't you? High power density, tiny modular, cost effective. To reinvent electricity and create a planet without fossil fuels by 2040.
Oh, coming up pretty soon then.
Yeah. The idea is you could, you're looking at 9+ years on these batteries, so you could make electronics that never need to be charged.
Yeah. And especially when we're looking at eliminating fossil fuels from automobiles, could be a pretty cool thing.
It would be interesting if they can scale it up enough to use it in electric cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
So-
does it indicate? What size they actually are? Or?
They're nano.
Yeah.
No, they're
It's in the
scalable.
name.
Well, I mean, that's the implication, but I was assuming the nano actually had something to do with how it's built inside the battery.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find anything on the technology
I'm
here.
assuming that it's
Oh,
going to be
please.
like a standard 1.5 or 3 or 5 volt.
Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of links, and I just heard about it. I thought, I'm going to throw it out there, and it sounds like a perfect after-show fodder to me.
Yeah.
It's 14.29 times more efficient than RTGs, which I
Well,
had to
there you
Google and find it's a radioisotope thermoelectric generator.
Of course.
Of course, I mean that's what else would it be?
Well, I'll have to switch mine out for one of the NDVs.
Yes. It's time to retire your RTGs.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So it sounds like they're taking a diamond nuclear voltaic layer and putting it on top of a single crystalline diamond layer, and those two produce heat amongst themselves, which is then converted into electricity. So it's scalable in size.
I
And
was gonna say, yeah. So in theory, it could be almost any size, but I guess there'll need it to be a certain scale to get a certain voltage out of that photovoltaic reaction. Okay.
To power a car, you just need a couple of 100 pounds of diamonds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay.
No problem.
so yeah, they are covered with are coated with a layer of polycrystalline diamond, which is known for being the most thermally conductive material, and has the ability to contain the radiation within the device, and is also the hardest material, 12 times tougher than stainless steel.
We promise it'll contain the radiation.
Yeah.
Honest. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had no idea diamonds could contain radiation. It doesn't seem practical, but I worked at Hanford Nuclear Reservation for a while and worked on some planning as they were trying to, okay, how are we going to, encapsulate this stuff?
Did
And
diamonds ever come up?
diamonds never came up. Cement and glass came up.
Sounds like they really missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that you worked at a nuclear plant explains some things.
I can turn off the lights and just glow.
Blinky.
Yeah.
In case you want to know, it's also boron doped, because that's a fun word to say.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Candy swing.
How else would
from
you
a
dope it?
Yeah.
Diamonds are forever. So is nuclear waste.
Yes, but sadly, Sean Connery is not. So
No.
yeah.
Can we make a battery out of Sean Connery?
Well, Highlander, he lasted forever in Highlander, didn't he?
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Will it produce 1.21 gigawatts?
Tom, where are we gonna get the power?
You can only get that power from a bolt of lightning. And you never know when those are going to strike.
Speaking of that, I just saw a news story that the actress that played the clock tower lady, quote unquote, passed away this week. So
Oh, the clock tower lady.
yeah.
She was one of
And-
my favorite actresses.
And as we were chatting in the time before the show, it's not the after show, it's not the pre-show, I don't know what you want to call it. Today is the 65th anniversary of the Red Letter Day, and it's day of in the history of science, November 5th, 1955, the day that time travel was invented by Dr. Emmett L. Brown.
And you know how he did it, right?
Yeah, slipped and fell off the toilet while he was hanging a clock, I believe, over the toilet. Yeah. Hit his head, and when he woke up, he saw the flux capacitor. November 5th, 1955.
So it's happened.
Yeah, 65 years ago.
Mhm.
Happy anniversary to Doc Brown. Wherever and whenever he is now.
IHAM says, per Wikipedia, they make use of the carbon rods after they're pulled out of reactors.
Yes, I heard something about that. So
So the carbon rods are the control rods that keeps the reaction from going to critical.
Yeah.
I don't know, a fascinating bit of technology that I'm going to do some more Googling about. And maybe now somebody else is too.
Very cool.
It's Guy Fawkes Day.
That's right.
Ah.
Yeah.
In the UK.
which means nothing here in America to us.
Well, then you should Google it because it's quite interesting.
It is. I looked it up a couple of years ago. I was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Remember the 5th of November.
That's right.
Gunpowder, treason, and plot. I don't know any more words of that, but it goes on.
Oh, so you're saying you guys don't know it either? I don't feel so.
Well, I know what it is. And
I was going to say, I have looked it up in the past. I could not pass a test on it at the current point in time. So,
Folks, until next week, don't you plot, but I think you should plot to get out and get cashing in the Northwest.